We are back on It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati. Lindsay Patterson, Mike Santagata here. Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing, Lindsay?
I'm great. I'm great. I mean, obviously, I like it when we can talk about postseason after this week for the Cincinnati Bengals, but I'm kind of just ready for the season to call it over, to be honest with you, when it comes to regular season for the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, I mean, it is over. I mean, they're not making the postseason. You have a pretty pointless game to finish it out, which we're going to talk a lot about.
Mm-hmm.
um,
Still listen.
Not entirely pointless. It's going to be some people's last game, probably. It always is. You're final game of the regular season. You never return absolutely everybody back from the same squad. But yeah, man. I mean, like, there's no postseason. What were you playing for? I mean, just because for love of the game, and then also gonna play hard because you want to beat your in-state rival and want to not go winless in the division. I think those would be the three biggest motivators for why the Bengals might come out and try to, kind of try to dunk on Cleveland a little bit.
I would say if you're a Cincinnati Bengals fan, and I get it because Jamar Chase talked to the media this week, and congratulations to Jamar Chase and Trey Hendrickson for making Pro Bowls again. I know the Pro Bowl voting is kind of a joke, but I would say it's very easy to say those two deserve to be Pro Bowlers. When it comes to their talent, what they've been able to do, especially it's unbelievable what Trey's been able to do as far as the sacks this year. And we'll see if he gets to 18, 19, maybe 20. I know they're going to be playing the Cleveland Browns backups in that game. So we'll see what that looks like when we give the preview. But Jamar Chase talked about it. And I think he said he was at around 73% going into this game. And it just sounds like, of course, I'm going to play. I want to play. Good for him. I know how Zach Taylor talked to the media and he said, we're playing this game to win. I know how a lot of Bengals fans feel when they're out of the playoffs. It's like, oh, if you lose, you're probably going to help your draft pick. And I've said it before, I think they can only really fall to 13 and 16. And of course, 13 is still a pretty high number that you can be able to pick when a season was pretty much lost when Joe Burrow went down. But overall, we'll see how that looks for them. Obviously, you want to avoid any injuries going into the offseason. So hopefully everybody can stay healthy going into this last game. But, to be determined, does Tee Higgins play? He was out of practice all week. He's been dealing with that hamstring injury. Is this his last game in Cincinnati? What does that outlook look like? Tyler Boyd, I feel like the writing's on the wall. This will more than likely be his last game to be determined on the future at the right tackle position. But that feels like could be it for Jonah Williams, listening to him talk to the media. It's kind of a bittersweet game for this Cincinnati Bengals team. I still feel like they have a lot of talent. Of course, their core players, Joe Burrow, and I've said it before, Jamar Chase. And of course, I want to put Tee Higgins in that conversation. I just don't know what the future looks like for the team in a long period of time as far as an extension. And on the defensive side, they still have a lot of question marks going into the offseason with a guy like DJ Reader up for a contract extension. If that happens, if he comes back off an injury. So I don't know. This game feels definitely a different vibe going into it. And doesn't mean a whole lot if they go winless in the division if they never had their healthy quarterback for any of those games.
Yeah, not really. But there is all the possible final games. I mean, a lot of those I think are definite. I mean, Tyler Boyd, I don't see him coming back. I feel like if you do figure out a way for him to come back, it means that T's definitely gone. But I don't see them going through this offseason without tagging Tee Higgins.
Mm-hmm.
That just feels inevitable. I know there is I think, small but vocal minority that wants to tag Jonah Williams instead. And I don't see that happening. Noted Jonah supporter. People didn't like me last offseason because I kept saying he's fine and solid and a starting offensive tackle while they were hoping for Jackson Carman and whatever else. Trade him because Carmen's not that much worse or he could be better. I don't know. A whole bunch of it's not fine to start Jonah Williams actually.
That gives me a nightmare to think about right now. If Jackson,
if they would have they would have attempted that strategy, but so it's probably Jonah Williams' last game. Speaking on the Tee Higgins versus Jonah Williams franchise tag decision, unless a deal gets done with T, I don't see them tagging Reader. It could be Reader's last game. I mean, the thing that sucks is I'm obviously a very big Reader supporter, but also, man, getting hurt in your contract year, that stinks. But also, one more step from that is just I had somewhere with this. Whenever it feels like fans or analysts or somebody are coming up with a scenario that just doesn't sound plausible, that's when I think that player's gone. And the ones for Reader are like 1 year prove it deal. It's like, what do you mean? You think he's not getting an offer better than a 1 year prove it deal on the open market? That's not happening. This might be the end because I just don't think they're going to value it either, being that he's not going to be 30 yet. I think he's going to be 29, but whatever deal you give him is going to take him through his age 31, 32 season. And the Bengals don't like giving money to those players. So you're looking at those guys. Chidobe Awuzie, big in this last era of the Bengals. I assume he's gone. Mm-hmm. That one with the 1 year prove it deal is like, proof what? He probably wouldn't start. Nothing against him. And he started over DJ Turner in that last game, but DJ Turner is, I'm 90, 80, somewhere in there. I'm fairly confident DJ Turner is one of your starting corners next year with Mike Hilton and Cam Taylor-Britt. Like that feels like your starting cornerback trio outside of something crazy happening. So Cheeto's probably leaving and going to go get paid and start somewhere else. So a lot of guys, feels like a lot of guys, the possibility for this to be their last game, and that sucks.
It really does. I always try to look at the glass half full because when your quarterback goes down, it's really hard, especially a guy like Joe Burrow. It's different for other franchises because they don't revolve around their quarterback, or they have the number one defense in the NFL. And that's one thing that the Bengals didn't have this year. But I think, guys like Tyler Boyd, kind of just start with him before we get into all the Cleveland Brown and Cincinnati Bengals matchup. He was one of those people. When he was drafted in Cincinnati, he always was really supportive the way he was in the wide receiver room, and ended up being, a really strong leader with some of the younger guys when they were drafted. It was awesome to see the trio of Tee Higgins, Jamar Chase, and Tyler Boyd in those conversations where, is this the best 3 wide receivers in the NFL on any team? And, you had that for a couple seasons. And I wanted them to win. I obviously wanted them to win the Super Bowl when they were in LA because that's my favorite team. I wanted them to win the championship. But I thought about guys like him, and you can even point at Joe Mixon, and just thought they've been through it all. They've been through the wins. They've been through the losses. And it would just be really cool because of just how he's always been since he's been with the Cincinnati Bengals, to see it finally get done for guys like that. Being around with the changes of Marvin Lewis to Zach Taylor, finally winning a playoff game. I remember when they won the playoff game against the Raiders at home, he was leading the Who Dey chant with the stadium out of the off the sideline, and I just thought, this is so cool for him. It's so cool to see him finally get this done. I know it's just a playoff win, but it's awesome for Tyler Boyd. And I don't know, I get it. I get why the team is more than likely not going to bring him back, and he'll go on another team. It'd be crazy if he went to the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I wouldn't be surprised. We'll see where Tyler Boyd goes in 2024. But he's definitely one I'm gonna miss. I get it, but he still did a lot of fun things when he was on the team, and I've always really just enjoyed him as a wide receiver and just as a person on the team.
Yeah, I mean, he's been here a long time. I mean, that Ravens is probably his most famous moment, the game against the Ravens in a regular season finale that had no bearings on whether or not the Bengals made the playoffs or did anything. Actually sent to the Bills to the playoffs instead. There's even less stakes in this one, though, because the Browns have locked in the 5 seed. So win or lose, it doesn't matter for them. Meanwhile, the Ravens, you got to at least play spoiler and knock them out of the playoffs. So in a Schadenfreude type of way, there is something fun there. But that was a long time ago, and he got drafted the same year Michael Thomas got drafted. I can still remember being upset that all those wide receivers went before the Bengals picked William Jackson III, who was the first-round pick in his draft class. Will Fuller, Corey Coleman. I'm trying to think I can remember. Laquan Treble was the last one. I thought he was going to make it to the Bengals, and he did not pick. None of these guys ended up very good, except Will Fuller had a couple of seasons where he was very fun. But yeah, Josh Doxson. There's so many names. And then yeah, second round was like Michael Thomas and Tyler Boyd. So like the second round was the good players. But I remember being upset because it was like the Bengals were for sure going wide receiver in that spot, and then they couldn't because all the first rounders got taken. And then the second round they get Tyler Boyd, and I think like I wish this was whoever. I don't remember who, but how wrong that was. I didn't study the draft then, so don't come at me too hard. I just kind of like knew what guys were supposed to go where. But those are two of my main memories, and then obviously you have in that greatest terrible game of all time, the Bengals Dolphins, where the Bengals came back the year that they got the number one pick. Tyler Boyd towards the end of that game, because the clock was running out, was hurt, and he was able to limp himself up onto the line of scrimmage so that they could snap the spike and not take our 10-second runoff, which I think might have ended the game because I think it was like the second to last play or something. And that'll always stick in my mind too. Another meaningless game, but just putting your heart and soul out there for the team. Those all stick out. I mean, obviously the past couple of years he hasn't been the number one guy. He's been the third guy, but he still has his moments. He still has great games. Weirdly, the one I remember the most for recently is you could probably think of a better game than this, but there's two, and they both happened in 2021. One was the Jags Thursday night game against Urban Meyer and Trevor Lawrence, where they repeatedly ran the same concept with Tyler Boyd on the juke route the entire way down the field for, I think, multiple drives, and it was just unstoppable. And then the other one was the Broncos game where he had that huge catch against Vic Fangio's defense, and it was like nobody was scoring in that game. You had what I think of as one of the great forgotten plays, funny forgotten plays, where Khalid Kareem steals the ball from Drew Lock as he's trying to do something.
Oh, that was a wild game. It was like 10 to like 15.
Yeah. And Tyler Boyd caught that big touchdown. That was just like that was it. Like somebody scored a touchdown, like the game over. So those are two games I can think of recently from him. Do you have any to add on? Probably some better games.
Oh my goodness. I just think when I think of Tyler Boyd, he was always kind of the third down guy over the last couple years.
Yeah,
And during third downs, Tyler Boyd's going to get it. Tyler Boyd's going to get it. And I agree with you. Obviously, this past year was kind of a down year for Tyler Boyd, but there's just so many moments of him being out there with the trio. Say Tee Higgins is tied up or one of the guys is dealing with an injury. You could always count on Tyler Boyd to step up. I don't think we talk about it enough. I think Tyler Boyd's absence in the AFC Championship game changed that game offensively.
Yeah, because it started off really good for them too. Because the Chiefs, partially because the Chiefs slot corner got hurt on like the second play of the game, and then the way you could take advantage of that is they're going to have to pay attention to Jamar Chase. They're going to have to pay attention to Tee Higgins, who they can't pay attention to when you're paying attention to two other wide receivers is the slot guy, and he gets to go against the backup. He was smoking them, and he was smoking whoever they put in the slot. It wasn't just the backup guy. So it was about to be a big game, but then he also got hurt.
Yeah, that one. I always kind of do a what if, what would have happened in that game if Tyler Boyd would have stayed healthy. And we could say the same thing about the offensive line if they would have had one more healthy offensive lineman. But overall, like I said, this one just feels like it's at a 95% chance of happening that Tyler Boyd is gone. I wish him the absolute best, and hopefully, maybe he gets one last touchdown at Paycor Stadium on Sunday versus the Cleveland Browns. And he's always just been a class act in Cincinnati. And, just hearing Jamar Chase talk about him today, you could tell what a difference he has been with this offense. Any other players besides I'm not ready to talk about the last game for Tee Higgins because to be determined if he's playing in this game, but I agree with you. It feels like a tag or maybe they work on an extension, but for me, I'm leaning more towards the franchise tag for Tee Higgins going into 2024.
Yeah, I'm just expecting Higgins to be tagged, so I haven't really thought too much about it. If it is Higgins' last game, I mean, that stinks because I thought there'd be at least another year. If you had to guess and rank in order of likelihood of what happens, there is letting him go, and just letting him walk and using the tag elsewhere, or not using the tag at all to maybe save some money on extensions or something. There is tag and trade. There is tag and let him play. And there is long-term deal. What do you think is most to least likely?
If he had a different agent, I feel like the
Yeah,
extension
but he has his
that I
agent.
have to factor that in. I have to factor in who his
Yeah,
agent is. So that's going to be unfortunate for me. I think this team tries to do it one more year.
yeah, I
And
think so too. Like I think most likely is one more year, and I feel pretty confident. Like if there was some type of, I don't know if there is, maybe there is some type of degenerate betting
oh, there
website that
is.
I could. Oh, okay, then I would bet that he gets tagged and plays next year. I don't know how I would cash that out if it happens. Second most likely, to me, it's it,
They want to control where he's going.
all three of those just don't seem likely, the other three for this year. But maybe it's tag and trade.
Mm-hmm.
But this team doesn't trade. So that tells you how likely I think this is. But just the idea of Jacksonville, and maybe they don't want to trade Jacksonville at all, but I would think that Jacksonville really wants Tee Higgins, Trevor Lawrence connection, bad wide receiver connection, a guy that can help unlock the other receivers and a struggling offense, and they're a playoff team, so they have a reason to go all in. If they just offer 2 firsts, like you take that. Like I don't think you could actually refuse that if you were Duke Tobin, because you go like, well, I mean, we're not getting a long-term deal, 2 firsts, even if it was a first and a third or something like that, but like a first plus, even if it is another contender, I think you have to take that. So something like that happening, or maybe just Atlanta offering whatever their first round pick is or something like that. Could even be a second rounder. But I don't think they take a second rounder personally. I think they'd rather run it back. And then I think it's more likely they get a long-term deal than it is they just let him walk this year.
Yeah.
But I do think next year, if I was betting, the most likely option might be that he just walks, which is unfortunate because you should be able to get something for him.
Yeah, and if this class wasn't so loaded at wide receiver, and the pushback I get from some fans when I say I wouldn't be surprised if the Cincinnati Bengals take a wide receiver 13 through 16, if one of these top wide receivers fall to them. If not, you could probably get one in the second round because it is a loaded wide receiver class. The pushback I get is, but they have Yoshi, they have Charlie Jones, and they never really used them in this offense. And I get at times they didn't towards the end, but are you taking Tee Higgins off? Are you taking Jamar Chase off? Are you taking Tyler Boyd? I get it, and I don't. Towards the end, I think you should have played maybe some more of the younger guys in Charlie Jones and Yoshi. We saw it at times, but first round wide receivers a little bit different from your fifth and sixth round wide receivers of who you're going to be drafting. So, and they're good at drafting wide receivers. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see that in the first or second round. I still think they go BPA, and we'll get to all that, in later months when we look towards the offseason. But I just think one more year with Tee Higgins, see what can happen in 2024. Joe Burrow's contract really doesn't impact anything into 2024, nothing crazy with the number. And you get Jamar Chase done. I definitely believe Jamar Chase, they'll pick up the 5th-year option, but they'll get the Jamar Chase deal done in August.
I believe the 5th-year option is really expensive for him because he's a
It is.
multiple-time Pro Bowl. It's basically the same price as a franchise tag, I think.
Yeah.
So
So
I wonder
yeah.
if they do. I wonder if they do pick up the 5th year, if they think it might be cheaper to just go without it and just do an extension.
So what they can do is work in the extension, kind of like what they did with Joe Burrow.
Right. Yeah. But I think Burrow was on the old system where the 5th year wasn't that bad.
That could be true. I definitely would have to look into
This is
that.
a new CBA thing. That's why it's
Oh man,
uncharted waters.
then I definitely have that wrong.
No, they did that with Burrow. It's just I don't think it was the same price as like the franchise tag for a quarterback, which was high. Like that's why I think like they might.
That's insane.
I think it's $20 million that
It's
would
20
be the
million
fifth
for the
year
wide
option.
receiver. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I wonder if you just go like, let's just work a normal deal out. Like that's not really saving us any money here.
That would be smart to do.
Yeah, could be. I don't know. We haven't seen any of this yet. So
You're
I think
right.
who are some of the other? I'm trying to think of. I think there's other players that met that protocol. So I'm wondering what their contract will look like too. I can't think of who.
Well, I think what's going to happen is Justin Jefferson will probably be the first wide receiver going into this offseason that signs his extension, and he'll set
True.
the market. Then Jamar Chase could reset it after that, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Jefferson, he had a 5th year that was normal though, I think.
yeah.
Penei
So
Sewell. Oh, that's the other guy. Penei
he's
Sewell is the other
he's
guy that
a
yeah,
lot of money.
his 5th year option will cost the same as an offensive tackle franchise tag, huh?
What are the chances that the Sewell and the Jamar Chase debate that we were having going into that draft, they're both going to be making a lot of money after their rookie contract. So that'll be fun to talk about. But I think if you were to look at the outlook of that wide receiver room, I think Tyler Boyd, he's going to walk. I understand it from a front office perspective. Tee Higgins, they're going to probably franchise tag. And I do believe they'll get Jamar Chase done. Probably sooner than the kickoff of that Thursday night football game for Joe Burrow. I do. I feel like that's what's going to happen there. But outside of that, I mean, I know how fans feel about Jonah Williams, another guy. I hope he gets his bag and he goes to another team. He tried to work out in Cincinnati. It didn't work out. And I felt like despite how those early reports were when he had to move over to right tackle, he handled it as a pro. And that's all you can really ask for.
I do also think that is probably what drove him from wanting to stay in Cincinnati, but he did handle it like a pro, had a good season, and now he'll probably go get paid somewhere that, I mean, look, you can play left tackle and right tackle. I'm sure you can go find somebody that'll pay you plenty of money.
I mean, look at the Kansas City Chiefs tackles, what they got.
Well, they can't afford, one, they can't afford to spend much more on that offensive line, but two, they can't really, I mean, they need a left tackle only because Jawan Taylor won't play or can't play left.
Oh, I don't want him to go there, but just look at, you look at teams that need tackles and what they paid for their tackles. Jonah Williams will be just fine in the open market. And
if I'm Jonah, I want the McGlinchey contract. I mean, overpaid for what he was, but hey, that's what I would set the bar at. Like, I'm better than that guy, and I can play both sides.
Yeah, so the writing's on the wall there. And again, when you look at where the Bengals are in the draft, I wouldn't be surprised if they take a tackle. They're open to a lot of positions, and they still have some needs going into 2024. So we'll see what that looks like. DJ Reader, I don't want to think about it being his last year. Maybe I'm optimistic, but I think they're going to figure out a 1-year deal, and maybe I'm being too optimistic.
Oh, okay. I don't see it happening.
You don't see it happening.
I think he's going to get a deal from somebody else, and it'll be better than what the Bengals could offer in a 1 year.
That makes
sense. What if you just get hurt again in the 1 year? Now you're 30 with no financial security.
Yeah, DJ Reader, you should probably do what's best for you. But if you were a friend of the show, you would sign the 1-year contract maybe from the Cincinnati Bengals, just 1 more year. And another guy who this team, I think, when you think about free agent signings, DJ Reader really kicked it off for the Bengals spending money in free agency in 2020. There was the conversations. I think Denver wanted him.
Yeah, it was Denver.
And he thought about the quarterback position because he knew the Cincinnati Bengals were going to draft Joe Burrow. And it was like, ooh, where do I want to go? And a guy who's only been here since 2020 is another piece of this defense. At times, I feel like it's fair to say now, he was their best player on defense. And just a huge free agency signing by the front office, and it really started the very beginning of what we were able to see over the last few years when it comes to spending money, because they were definitely, a lot of people talked about the Bengals front office. They don't spend enough money. They're not doing enough. And it was really cool because it hit, I don't know if you remember, I just remember how free agency people react on Twitter, but it was right around 4:00 or 4:30 when free agency could officially happen or get announced in 2020. And all of a sudden I see DJ Reader, the Cincinnati Bengals. There's no way this is happening, when everybody thought, oh, they're not going to spend any money. So yeah, he was the beginning of what really changed with the roster, and really unfortunate to see him go down towards the end. Wish him the best if this is it for him in Cincinnati. We'll see where he goes, but definitely someone where I'll keep an eye where he goes and hope he really succeeds, which I'll have no doubt about coming off his injury. But yeah, it's a little bit of a bummer. Is there anybody else I'm missing in this game? That's going to be it.
Not that I could think of.
Yeah, that's about it. Well, this is it for the Cincinnati Bengals regular season finale. Cleveland Browns. It's going to be a cold rain, according to the meteorologist. So I'm really excited about sitting through that. But I'll go watch the game. We'll see what it looks like. There might be a lot of Cleveland Browns fans there. We'll see though. Maybe not. Maybe Cincinnati Bengals fans will brave the cold in the last game for the Cincinnati Bengals for the 2023-2024 season. Next, we get to do predictions on It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati. We are back on It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati. Browns and Bengals, as you mentioned before, the Browns are currently locked in as a 5th seed. It's very unfortunate. The Cincinnati Bengals don't have a postseason to play for. This is it for them. We're going to see the majority of the starters. Zach Taylor said they're going to play to win. Jake Browning will be out there. Jamar Chase will be out there. I'm sure Joe Mixon, I know he was dealing with an illness at practice today, but he'll be out there to be determined on Tee Higgins because he is battling that hamstring injury. And you got to do what's best for you in that situation. And hamstring injuries can linger. He definitely was a champ for going back out on the field against the Kansas City Chiefs. And I'm sure that wasn't easy, but we'll see if he plays. What are you thinking about this game?
I don't know everybody on the Browns that's going to miss this game. Like, is Myles Garrett playing? I assume he might. No? Okay.
I don't think so. If he plays, that would be kind of questionable to me.
Well, he might be playing to win Defensive Player of the Year, though.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, because if Micah Parsons plays and gets like 2 sacks or something, it's probably over for him. Or TJ Watt also is playing for something. If he gets a sack or 2 and ends up at 18, 19 sacks, like might not get as many votes as you might like. So I don't know everybody that is playing. I feel like I just I don't know. There's
Myles Garrett plays. I'm like,
yeah. Either way of this game, I feel like it's fine for the Bengals. Like, I'm not rooting for them to lose, but I also can see why they should lose with nothing to gain. Move closer. I think that I always think top 12 pick is like a really good pick in the draft, and then picking 13 is like right outside that, but that's also still good, like, just hope that somebody takes somebody that's not expected, which does happen most years. Whereas pick 19, I think is the lowest they can go, or highest, whatever you want to think of there.
Oh, I didn't even think 19 was
18.
I guess we would on Saturday. You're going to be really big Pittsburgh Steelers and Houston Texans fans, because if they win, they'll have one more win no matter what for the Cincinnati Bengals, and I don't think the Bengals can go anywhere up.
I'm surprised on the tiebreaker on that. Both those teams beat the Bengals in every matchup.
I can't even do the math. I'm butchering it.
I'm not bothered with this math, but yeah sure.
Someone tell me on Sunday at 4:00 where the Cincinnati Bengals are.
Yeah, win, lose. Where do they end up? So I think maybe it's 18, somewhere around there.
It would have to be.
Not as good of a pick. It's not a top half of the first round pick. It's kind of no man land pick, which 13 is a little bit too, but at least it's not as bad. I think like 18, 19 is like, yeah, fine, sure. I can't think of a ton of times the 18th, 19th pick worked out compared. Like, I feel like 13th pick could get a top 10 talent a lot of years, especially with all these quarterbacks that could go. So there's the reason for the Bengals to lose, the reason for the Bengals to win. So you don't go winless in division. You beat the Browns for the first time in, well, I guess they won last year. But, a team that's been a thorn in your side, you beat them. So I can see the reason to do that too, and just to win. Like, you're supposed to go out there and win, competitors. So I don't really have much of. I don't have much of an opinion on this game, to be honest. It'll happen.
Like I said before, I'm ready to get optimistic again about this team. I'm ready to talk off season. I'm ready to get excited about mock drafts of players that I've not watched at all. But I'm convinced because of the experts on the Bengals Twitter, which there are plenty of people to follow. They're really awesome. Parker Blake is one of them. Draft Guy Jared, friend of the show. All have really good breakdowns, and I've been following along, and I'm trusting everything they say about these players. And I'm just not a big college football person to know enough about them outside of the wide receivers. I'm just not. Yeah, I get into it in maybe March, early April, and I'm like, okay, this is the guy, this is the one. But I trust them when it comes to the breakdown of these players. The wide receiver classes they've mentioned before is really loaded. When you look at interior, that's going to be a need for the Cincinnati Bengals, and that could mean something if they're in the 13 range. If that wide receiver falls, I wouldn't be shocked at all if they pulled the trigger and they got a top wide receiver that's available for them. It will be interesting to see where they go. But it will be BPA for me going into that first round. So this game, I agree. I feel like if you win, then obviously you don't go winless in the division. You go into the offseason with a win, one more win at home. But if you lose, you're probably just helping your draft standings, and maybe you get a steal in the first round. I'm just ready for it to be over, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm kind of there. The nihilistic of like, the game will happen. I don't really care too much. I'm ready for it to be over, and we move on to next season.
Yeah, because I'll talk myself into everything. By March, I'll have this whole plan, or April. This is who they're going to get. This is the free agent. This is their schedule. They're going to play the Carolina Panthers. This is going to be great for them. Joe Burrow updates are going to be amazing to get when he's finally back out there throwing. Social media on the Bengals side will be so excited to see him throw football again after dealing with that injury. So I'm just. I'll still watch the playoffs because I love the NFL more than any sport that
Same.
exists.
Yeah, I plan on watching
Um,
the playoffs for sure.
I might hate watch it sometimes because I don't want certain teams to win it.
I'm just gonna become a Lions
I
supporter.
want the Lions to do it. Dan Campbell, man, has me all in. Everything he says is awesome. I really do. And for their city, I at least hope they win a playoff game because their fans are passionate. It really does remind me of how the Cincinnati Bengals fans felt in 2021 when they were able to finally end that drought, which is the same amount of years the Detroit Lions are dealing with. So it would be really cool to see that happen. I think the Rams could end up surprising a lot of people in the playoffs. They're playing pretty hot right now. Matthew Stafford.
They're probably. I think it's likely they play the Lions round one though.
Oh, poor Lions. Poor Lions. What if the I mean,
Well,
this
one of those two teams, I'm fine with both of them winning.
I don't have a problem. It's not the Rams' fault. Ron Torbert called the flag on Logan Wilson,
Right.
and I don't have a huge dislike for them or anything like that. So yeah, I would be totally fine if the Rams found a way to get back to the Super Bowl. I think the Bills are the team, and we'll get into kind of the playoffs because we'll talk a little bit about that while we're talking Bengals offseason going into next week. But I think the Bills could surprise a lot of people too. But yeah, this game it's one more to get over with until we get into the offseason and we can talk everything Cincinnati Bengals. We don't have to talk about a Joe Burrow contract extension, so that's going to be really refreshing. That's going to be out of the way. Now it's on to Jamar Chase and Tee Higgins. So we'll see how that goes on social media. But I think Jamar Chase will get done during the preseason training camp time frame. But yeah, for the Cincinnati Bengals, maybe I don't even think it's an over 37 points.
Yeah. I don't know. Like if defenders don't play, I could see the over going. And I mean, we have to remember Jake Browning was good for a
He
few weeks
was,
there.
and this is yeah. Jake Browning he'll be playing. Jamar Chase is still playing football on Sunday.
Yeah. Tyler Boyd, the other weapons.
Okay, it's over 37.
Higgins, we'll see. Yeah. I don't know. I wouldn't bet that line. That's how I feel.
I definitely wouldn't make any bets in that game, to be honest with you. Maybe a Jamar Chase touchdown. I feel pretty good about that, but we'll see what it looks like. But yeah, Cincinnati Bengals, Cleveland Browns. Cleveland will be playing some of their backups, but the Cincinnati Bengals are playing their starters. So we'll see what that looks like. Again, to be determined if Tee Higgins goes dealing with that hamstring injury as of Thursday. Jamar Chase says he's going about 73% right now. Tyler Boyd will be out there. Joe Mixon dealing with an illness, but he'll more than likely be out there. What I'd like to see some Yoshi, Charlie Jones, Chase Brown. Why not? Your last game, you have nothing to lose. Defensively, we'll see what that looks like. But unfortunately, they'll go into the offseason with some defensive problems that I think they can fix with in free agency and even in the draft and some of these other guys getting their first full season as starters under their belt. So that's where I'm at. I think you got to give a score. So I'll go 21-17 Cincinnati Bengals.
I was kind of surprised the Bengals were favored by 7, right?
That's insane to me.
Maybe there are a lot of Browns that I don't even know aren't playing. Like maybe Myles Garrett for sure isn't playing and all these other guys.
That'd be ideal.
Yeah. Myles Garrett for me almost swings that line like 2-3 points by himself. Like,
if he didn't play in these matchups, I would feel confident about Cincinnati every single time. They just feel like such a mismatch every time they play the Cleveland Browns. But every time he's out there, I'm terrified for my quarterback.
Yeah, they actually have corners that can hang with the wide receivers too, which is not very many teams have. 2017. Bengals.
There you go. People right. My record for the year, if the Bengals win, is 9-8 because I picked the Cincinnati. Well, maybe there was one game I didn't pick them.
There was one game we both
the Niners
picked them. No, we both picked them to lose against the Rams, and they won.
We did. That game is so wild to think about. If you go back and think about that game, because they couldn't get anything going offensively, but defensively, it was one of my favorite games from the defense. And I thought the defense is back, everyone. It's okay. And it kind of wasn't. And Yeah, that Niners game, I can't believe I picked them. I mean, I have to go back because that's still my favorite game of the season, and we can kind of talk about that next week and kind of going back into the season, a little look back on this 2023 season.